So, good evening, everyone, and thank you, everyone who's watching this live. And if you're watching on one of the replays or YouTube or LinkedIn, thank you for tuning in. So, I'm Brendan from Bluelight, and tonight we have a very special guest star, Sergeant, still a sergeant.
Yeah. Yes, just about.
Yeah, Harry Tangye from Devon and Cornwall Police. A lot of you will know him better as at DC_ARV Sergeant.
That's a catchy one, that, isn't it?
The catchy one, yes, from Twitter. So outspoken at times, respected and revered by many, and insulted by a few. So welcome, Harry. And you've had your last day recently. How was that, your last day?
Oh, yeah, amazing. It was great. I was trying to keep it as normal as possible. I've got a close-knit section of 6, and they did something really lovely, got me a lovely little gift when I said I don't want any collections, because collections can be a right pain for people. It's yet another collection. So I forbid them for a collection. But of course, they did a collection, didn't they? Bless them. So that was lovely. And then they saw me out on convoy. As I was driving out, there were about 8 police cars with blue lights seeing me down the motorway and away. So wow. Some say they were making sure I'd left the premises, but it was amazing, and something I'll remember forever.
Oh my goodness! So we haven't got a video of that somewhere, have we?
You have, but you know what? I just thought I can't put it on because somebody will complain and say, "Well, that's a waste of taxpayers' money." And I don't want to get anyone in any trouble, so they'll have to prove it existed.
Oh my goodness! So we'll have to wait for that one. So for those of you who are watching this, you can actually chat and take part. So it's a question and answer thing. You should find that there's a chat function, so you can actually say things. So I've just seen that Lewis has said hello, and Deborah Ann has just sort of given us a wave. So. We have actually got people watching this, Harry. Wow.
That's amazing. So
perhaps I can actually do a poll function, but I'm not quite sure if I know how it works. But we could, I don't know, if people want to do that shout out. But I'd love to see that video. I mean, across the rest of the world, we see cool stuff like that. But
yeah, I know you do. Yeah, I know you do. And it will inevitably, I will put it out. But it's I mean, it's just absolutely brilliant. And it's just lovely that we can still do things like this now and then, and it shows people said some very sweet, lovely things. But that's it. You see, that's the problem. Is somebody, especially, and I used to say to my corporate, might as well delete their accounts. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, the sound just went wobbly for a moment.
So you might as well delete their accounts because someone will complain, and that unfortunately means work for somebody. So that's why I'm going to be a bit of a spoil sport this time. But yeah, I'll show you it privately, Brendan.
Oh, well, that'd be good to see. That'd be good to see.
Yeah.
That'd be good to see. Well, anyway, we've got quite a few other people joining us now saying hello, hi, good. I'll try and do shout outs as we go along, but I've got a big list of questions here for Harry. We'll see where it takes us, because the focus of this is, I like to think there's a message here from those who've served for 3 decades, lessons learnt, a little bit about your personality and where you see your life going now. And already I'm seeing a few questions coming in. But we'll start the ball rolling a little bit, because I'd like to take you all the way back to that initial motivation to join the police, because everyone's got a story about why they joined the police and what yours is.
Yeah, well, I wanted to be a dustman first of all, because it was a dustman then. It's some refuse collector or something, or a civil something recovery agent now, but it was a dustman. I wanted to hang on the backs of the lorries, and then when I was 10, I went to an open day at Newquay Police Station, and they had a little Ford Escort. You remember the little square ones with the little blue light, one little blue light, and I got in there, and there were 2 buttons. One was for the radio, one was for the light, and one was for the siren. The dee-da, dee-da. That was me, grit. That was my recruitment drive for me, worked. And I actually applied, and I got a reply back, and from an inspector who said, "We'd love to see you in another 10 years or so. Please apply."
Oh, wow.
So for those 10 years, that was it. I wanted to be a police officer, and that's all I did. I sort of stayed out of temptation trouble. you know, any little shoplifting sprees. If somebody wanted to nick a Mars bar or something, it's like, no, I'm not involved with this, thank you. And it did those things, and it made me sort of push my exams a little bit more than I would have done as well. So it was useful having an aim at that age, really.
Oh, at 10 years old. I thought you were going to say, so you wanted to be a bin man. Call them bin men up in the north.
Yeah.
I know a lot what you say. There'll be some kind of bin operatives now or something like that. But,
yeah, this is it. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say, so I always wanted to hang off the back of a bin lorry, but then I saw this amazing armed response team all hanging off the side of this big SWAT type vehicle. It wasn't like that back then, was it? It was just like, I remember thinking, this is amazing, because this new police car here has got a blue light that actually turns around on top. Because I do remember back in the day in the 80s, I can't remember, with a Vauxhall something or others, if we wanted to get people's attention, we had a little light on the top that just said police. And that was all the time. But if you wanted to get people's attention, you turned it on and off really quickly.
How many people are laughing at us now and going,
old farts. But there's a message there, there's a message there. It's always interesting hearing about people's motivation. I won't bore everyone to death with mine, but I got through into a hedge by an inspector when I was 18, and that was kind of my motivation, because I went to complain about him, because when I said you can't do that, he threw me in the hedge again. And the police officer at the front counter at about 1 o'clock in the morning, this is when they had police officers at front counters, 1 o'clock in the morning. She said, oh, what's he done now? Oh, he's like that with us, except he doesn't throw us in the hedges. And she told me all about being a police officer, and I thought, I kind of like that.
Blimey.
So, inspector for throwing that drunk, gobby 18-year-old in the hedge and swearing at me a lot and threatening to do all sorts of...
Yeah, the officer would get sacked today, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he would have got sacked, it would have been the end of his career, So, but anyway, so you got to join the police. Was it first time round?
No, I pretty much failed at everything. And I think I'm really keen to put that message across, is that I was Mr. Average. I dragged myself it was 6 O-levels. It was the year before it turned to GCSEs. But they were C's, and I got 1B in English, and it was just enough to get in and to apply. And I got to the 3-day interview at Middlemore, Exeter, for Devon and Cornwall. And I got through 3 days, and the interview at the end, I was 19. I was 18, 19. And they said, no, you're not ready. You need to go. I was devastated. And they said, well, why don't you join the specials? So I never thought about that. And I joined the specials. And I had all the powers of a regular officer. They taught me how to do stuff, stop search. It gave me confidence. I did that for a couple of years and reapplied. And boy, was I scared then. On the first day, I nearly didn't get through the medical. And they said, oh, your blood pressure's pretty high. Why don't you rest for a bit? And you should be all right. And then my heart was going bang, 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 bang. And I was thinking, this is it, I'm out. And I remember the doctor there, I won't name him, but he gave me my career because he said, nah, it's fine. And I know it wasn't. I know it wasn't. And that was 30 years ago. So I'm totally indebted. I think he realized it wasn't a medical condition. It was being anxious and the old adrenaline was flowing. But so I got in the second time when I was 21 then.
Right.
And got my first station at Torquay, where I live now, actually.
Wow. So that's interesting, that, because I think some people, when they apply for the police, think almost that the police owe them a living, and why won't they take me? And a message that sometimes people don't believe from me, but they might believe when more people like yourself say it, is that you've got to work hard for this. It's not going to be handed to you on a silver platter, because it's a very special place in society.
Well, and if you think about it, you're representing the police. As we all know with the negative media at the moment, you think you've got about 120,000 officers. You've got double that of civilian support staff, not much more. And you also, if you're a special constable, if you're a PCSO, if you're a regular police officer, the headlines say police officer. It doesn't differentiate. And so the police service is going to want as least negative publicity as possible. They need to vet you. And I know we get the impression that by some people that, I often say to people, at what point through the filter do they take all the humanity away? Why are you saying all police are like this? This is ridiculous. But it's easier to think like that if you are if you're that sort of individual. But no, they have to vet you hard because you are representing everything that they are, and they can't take the risk, can they?
Absolutely, yeah. I'd like to think they don't take the humanity out, because I think there's definitely room for characters still.
You're right, and there is, and I think, you know, when I joined, they said the job was effed. It was rubbish. It was finished, and the F wasn't for finished. And that was 30 years ago, of course. So, and they're still saying it now. It's just different. You know, things, you have to go with it. And I think I've got on so well on Frontline, I think, and things like that, because I've gone with the changes. And I know I'm ready to expect the next lot. And it was really good back there. Can we just keep it back there? Oh, no, we're on to the next lot. Some of it's not very nice. Some of it's like, oh, you know, that's rubbish. What are you doing? So you can, what I say is, you're going down the rapids through your career. You can guide it a bit. You can guide with a stick in there. What they call it? A paddle. That's the one.
Yeah, that's
they
the one.
pop a paddle in there. You can direct yourself a little bit. You can even influence it maybe a little bit, but you can't paddle upstream. So, you know, and that's really, I find, is best for your own sanity as well, is how to deal with all the changes that occur. Just go with it and influence it if you can, just a little bit.
Yeah, try and nudge it a little bit. You know, I think there's a lot of room for some eccentricity, for people who are slightly out there a little bit. But, you know, the police service, you know, thing
I might have been accused of that.
it expects a certain something from you, and if you overstep that mark, quite right.
Yeah, and I've got to say, because I get asked a lot of times by someone applying, you know, what advice can you give? What's the best? What should I do? And I say, you've got to be your own character. And because there's no good you doing don't be a clone of me, for God's sake. It's only one of me is quite sufficient, thank you very much. But you've got to be your own character, use your own weaknesses and strengths. And because my section of 6 here, but overall in the force of armed response, there were about 30 of us. So we'd meet up regularly for training and also for certain jobs. So I knew them all. They're all the same across every time. But all different characters, completely different characters. You had your funny ones, your real clever ones, your quite quiet ones, your noisy comedic ones. You know, you've got, and you need them all. You need them all. Wouldn't it be boring if we're all the same? That's for sure.
Absolutely. And that's where, you know, when it comes to police recruitment, you know, I think a lot of potential officers feel as though they've got to become almost like these competency speak, cliche speaking individuals, almost giving the answers that they think the interviewers want to hear. Mm-hmm. And I don't believe that's so, because the interviewers are people like you and me, who are operational police officers, who are thinking, can I see them on my team? You know, can I see them working in my team as part of this force? Have they got the right values, but can they fit in? And I think that's quite important.
And there's a caveat that, and I know that's with Bluelight Info, what you actually do to help people apply and for recruits and things like this. The caveat of that is, I applied for traffic once, and I thought, I'm just going to go in and show them how clean I am. You know, this is what I've done, and this is, you know, and even for my sergeant's exam, I went in. I pretty much failed everything once. I went in, and that's important to remember. You know, that's okay. I went in with an outstanding recommend from my supervisor. And I went in thinking, I'm going to absolutely blast this because I'm so excited for it. This is what I want. And I failed it. I don't know if anyone's failed with an outstanding recommend for an interview, but I did, because I then had to shape it. So you can't lose all your personality and your enthusiasm and that sort of things. But there's also a lot more to interviews as well that's important to know, isn't it? Isn't that as well?
So to say the preparation's important.
Incredibly,
having a structured approach, demonstrating some depth and breadth to your life, and
Ahmed,
at the moment as well.
Ahmed can relate to the first time failure I see there on a message. Yeah, we a lot of us there, I'm afraid, my friend.
Yeah, well, I think I've failed. Actually, the failure I was quite happy to fail was when I applied as a sergeant many years ago to be a sergeant in the Northwest Underwater Search Unit, because I used to do scuba diving. I still do scuba diving. I thought this would be great. We're living the dream.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where I was interviewed, and it was a good interview. And I went out that night with a friend of mine, and we went to the cinema in Salford, and we walked past the docks, and she said, if you're really lucky, this time in 6 months, you could be diving in this at this time of night. And I looked at it and thought, oh my God, what have I done? This isn't scuba diving as I thought it might be. This will be a life of diving in sludge, where I'm going to do injections every 3 months to protect me from all sorts of ills and evils.
Yeah.
And the next day, fortunately, I got a phone call from the inspector saying that you had a really good interview, but the sergeant from North Wales Police scored one more point than you. And that to sort of feign,
hey.
Perhaps I can wait until his tenure's up in 8 years' time, and then I can go for it again. And
that's a hell of a job, that.
Glad I didn't get that one. I managed to swerve that one nicely. Anyway, let's have a look at some questions here. So I've got a load of questions, but I always think it's good to take lots of questions from people in the chat room. So we're not going to get around to all of them, but I'm going to see what I can do to do some shout-outs. And there's a shout-out here. Hello from PCSO, Debbie Hollinson. Good afternoon to you, Debbie.
Good afternoon, Debbie.
She's from it's still your force, isn't it?
Yeah, it is at the moment. So the 27th is my last day. People can see I'm getting a little bit more on my Twitter account. You can see I'm getting a little bit more feisty, but I will not be shouty, sweary person because no one listens to that. But it's just, because complaints take time for other people. So, and I'm trying to, I tell you what I'm trying to get used to, Brendan, is not saying us and we and my force. I'm getting used to saying they and police officers, and it's difficult,
Well, it's quite a hard jump, that, So
I've
been out at 6.5 years, and I still have the weirdest, I call them police dreams. So I'll wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, having had this. It's normally I'm normally parading on as a constable somewhere where I used to work 25 years ago. But I'm also parading on my partner as an inspector I used to work with 10 years ago in a completely different force. It'd be so weird, but it'd be so full of detail that I'll wake up and I'll be thinking, do you know, that was so real. I feel like putting in an overtime claim.
Well, this is it. That's what I used to always say when I was watching, if I ever watched, a police documentary or something, I'd always say, no, if I watch that, I'd put in an hour's overtime. I see Brian Murphy says, you never stop saying us. You'd always say us. This is it. I'm trying though, Brian.
Yeah,
trying, Brian.
You will, because it's part of you, And there's part of me that thinks, actually, do you know, how well do forces prepare people for after the job? Because I don't think there is after the job, because the job's there within you. It doesn't go. It's part of you. It's part of your DNA. And I suppose that gets to that point of, why the police are looking for very special people, because it's extraordinary people doing an extraordinary role. It's not even a job, is it? So,
No, it is. You're right. It's still a vocation. Just, I do get slightly concerned. It was the Theresa May side of things, unfortunately. It did do devastating damage to the police as a whole. But then we can't moan about that all our lives. We need to sort of repair things and get back as not best as we are, because you'll never get back to as you are, but get back to the best thing in the future, and it may even be better, hopefully. So that's the important thing, and new recruits will be a part of that, and that's really important, that they don't just think, oh, it's rubbish now, because it's not. It's just different. It's just different.
Yeah. And that's actually John Sutherland. I did a webinar with John Sutherland.
No, I just spoke to him this morning, actually, yeah.
The famous police commander.
Good man. Lovely man. A lovely, lovely man.
Oh, it's just beautiful, wonderful man. And he said something that was quite amusing, actually, but then I reflected on it and thought, something here about the nature of the job. And for those people who aren't in the job, that's how it tends to get referred to, as the job. It is the job. And he said, 1829, Sir Robert Peel founded the Metropolitan Police Service. It was probably about 2 hours later when someone said the job's fucked. And he actually used the phrase. He said, about 2 hours later, someone would have said the job's fucked. I think when there's a bit of banter, that's fine, but I often wonder, and actually you might just, I'm sort of bouncing around questions, but I wonder what your thoughts are on the the sort of mental strain, because sometimes when I heard officers saying that, I'd be thinking, that's not really you. I mean, what's going on there? And I wonder to what extent over this past several years you've seen a change in terms of people saying, hang on a minute, is there something going on in his life or her life?
What, with people saying, what, the job's knackered, it's rubbish, and that side of things, you mean? Is that what?
Yeah, you're being very polite again, Harry.
Yeah, the job's fucked, yeah. It's because I saw a change from, and I saw it myself, to be honest, of I would do anything for the job. And because I'm a firearms tactics advisor, operational firearms commander, pursuit tactics, I was force SIO. I'd be knackered once to go home, and then I get a phone call from force incident manager saying, "Oh, we've got a job coming up. Could you do a quick a TA, a firearms tactics job on us?" Which means settling down again, getting to it. And I was, yeah, okay. Or even if I was off, can you come on tomorrow? That, you know, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And I found myself, because I think so many people felt that they then, instead of being an individual where you went to the canteens, you went to pantomimes at Christmas, you did police rugby, you did that, you were a named individual, and you became a commodity by the government, that you were stop searching the wrong people. You you had to be more efficient with your resources you have. You're too expensive. Slash the numbers. You don't need you to do that. You should only be dealing with crime. And I think people just felt like a number, and they were like, "Sod this. I'm come to work. I'm doing my job, and I'm going home again." And to get volunteers to do something became very difficult. Yeah. Of course, when it was less than, less than 14 days notice or something that you were on double time, that would help as well. And now it's time and a half. Yeah. But I think it's sort of, and I said to people, look, sod the big picture. Don't think of the government, you know, even the force, if you like. Think of you and your colleagues around you. And you do the best you can for you and your colleagues. Look after each other and make it the best party in the world if you can, between you and your colleagues. Forget the rest of the world. And I think that's really another way of sort of looking at it. And then now we'll start doing our own things, you know, where we do go for walks and we grab a training day now and then or something, and we just do something completely different. And now it's not frowned upon because of mental health, welfare. Let's get the whole crowd together. Let's do a Dartmoor thing. And it just refreshes everyone. You know, so yeah, no, you'll always get moany cops. You won't moan better than a cop, you know, but isn't it? It's true. Oh God, we love moaning. And then they say, well, okay, you've got a job on the same money tomorrow. How do you fancy that? And they're like, oh, well, hang on a minute.
Well, as one of my sergeants years ago used to say, I always used to say, look, the team can have a moan and a groan. Let's do it in the parade room with each other. Let's not do it out there in the community. Yeah. Let's not do it out there with the superintendent. Let's do it in our team with our people. And I had one particular sergeant, I won't name him, shame him, because it's blush, but he was brilliant at managing it. Better than me, far better than I ever was. And at the end of it, he would send everyone out, and he'd say, and he'd mean it as well, he'd say, just remember, best job in the world.
Yeah,
there's something about that, because how many other careers do you hear people saying, it's the other, there's this problem, the other, but they go, best job in the world, wouldn't do anything else.
And you're absolutely right, because I say to people, when you join the police, you are allowed, you're permitted into the most private lives of people. You have the privilege, you can call it, of going to someone at their worst moment, whether there's their husband's died, they're at a car collision. You're now telling them maybe about the death of their relative. You might not call that privilege, but it's a damn privilege to experience such a private moment in people's lives. Who else can walk into a stranger's house in a screaming domestic and establish exactly what's the root causes of all that, and what can be done to sort their lives out? And even if you, and I've always said, if even a broken down motorist or a crashed car with, you know, a young person in there or an elderly person absolutely devastated, their car is smashed, there's steam coming out, they feel danger because they're around a bend, and you come along, and the first thing I'll usually say, well, you can't park here. You know, it's just, and then you just see them like, oh, suddenly it's not so bad after all. And to me, that's just still so rewarding. The next best thing is shoving a Glock up a baddie's nose when they've been bullying someone else doing the same. So that's quite cool as well.
I've not experienced that one, I'm afraid.
It's nice to show the bullies that they're no longer in charge. That's the truth of it, to be honest.
Well, sometimes as a neighbourhood inspector, I'd get in my soapbox in front of a community when they'd say things like, yeah, but X, Y, and Z. And this is back in the days when we were tackling organised crime gangs as a neighbourhood team, before organised crime gangs even became a thing, or the groups or whatever they call them. But you know, they'd refer to some loan shark and how they're untouchable. And I'd say, I don't care. I'm not interested in this phrase untouchable. Listen, my gang's always bigger than their gang. My gang's always harder than their gang.
I think I'd gone all right with yours as your sergeant, I think, Brendan.
It was lovely. I'd even say, look, I can get men and women with guns and all sorts of stuff. I should have used that phrase where they can stick a Glock up someone's nose and say, how about this? But I can get helicopters. I remember once the community thinking I don't believe in. So we did a job on a pub where we wanted to intercept certain individuals. And this was when we could get 3 serials of tactical aid unit. And they were all on standby. We had RPU on standby with all the arterial roads. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
And, back then they called it India 66. It's a fixed wing aircraft that GMP once had. I think they got rid of it now. And it was up in the sky where no one could see it, just above this thin cloud layer. And it was a signal of, you know, the certain vehicles that were coming in when we knew when to do the strike. And it was brilliant. It was just like it's like playing cops and robbers. I loved it.
Oh, the biggest toy box in the world, isn't it?
Oh, it's just brilliant. But you know, you are getting the real bad guys as well. And I thought, do you know, I'm going to show off here. So I remember asking the control room, the pilot, if could you just bring the plane down so that everyone can see you circling? You see, that people would know what we're doing. Yeah, that's the point. I want them to see that, listen, you've got a police service here that can get these kind of resources. And we are going to take on the bad guys. And there's a little model I developed, and I don't know to what extent you've sort of seen this or in a different way, but I always think that if you're going to do some enforcement like that, you should also, at the same time, do some preventative work, because the young kids growing up in that area, you want to destroy their ability to see them as the role models. They want to see you as the role models. And then also, to what extent you're going to act as an advocate for the community and for the people who you arrest. I welcome your thoughts on this as well. The people who you arrest. I remember my sergeant, Don Blackhurst, bless his soul, telling me back in '86, when you arrest them, treat them like a lord. And when you bring them into the charge office, as it was back then, like a king.
Yeah.
There's something there, I think, about having that person, no matter what bad thing they've done and how many times you've had to stick a Glock up their nose.
Yeah.
For them to walk out.
You're absolutely right. And you're absolutely right, because you'll find that the only reason they are, excuse me, is larging it up, so to speak, is because they've got an audience. And so once you've taken their audience away, and once they're with you, and then they see that humanity come across, and, you know, you're saying, why do you do this? You know, why are you keeping on doing this? Why don't you just, you know, and then you get that conversation. They're a completely different person. It's all bravado. The whole thing's bravado. You get your OCGs that have got very different motivation. They want to make lots of money and have power. So there's certain people I shouldn't think it'll take an awful long time to get access to like that. But generally speaking, no, you're absolutely right. And I've always said, it's funny because the more angry I get, if I'm getting wound up, my section know, because the posher I get. And they know it's going to kick off in a minute, and they know. So I always get.
What's posh sound like? Go on.
Well, okay. So if you're on you might be in the high street, and it's 2 or 3 in the morning, and you've got a lot of yous out, very drunk, refusing to go, and there's been a few scraps, and there's one lad is saying, no, you can't tell me to leave, that sort of thing. Well, a little knowledge is dangerous. Off you go. And you need to, and if they're just persistent, you try two things. Is one, I'll just say, I'm sorry, Victor, can we have the van here? I'm going to have one coming in very shortly. Thank you. And I'll just dismiss him, look, because hopefully he'll just, 5 times out of 10, they'll scuttle off at that point. Think, oh, okay. And there's only a fake thing on there. I'm just not pressing it or anything. And then they'll say, yeah, but what about my mate? He hadn't done nothing, sort of thing. And I'm like, off you go now. Go, not listening. Go. Are you still here? And again, that gets rid of another 3 out of 10 usually. I'm not listening, just go home. And it's just using different techniques. This is after you've tried the reasoning stage, the explaining stage, and then you realize actually they're not listening. They just want to be, they're just drunk and you're their entertainment. And I think that's the other thing. So at that point, it's okay, next thing is, let's get everyone in the van, let's just disappear. Hide around the corner, it's 10 minutes, drive down through the high street and everyone's gone. Job done. That's the other thing, isn't it? There's all these little techniques you'll learn.
There's something there about the experience that the service loses, because, that tactic there, you won't find that in a book anywhere.
No, my goodness, most of my tactics, I don't think you'll find.
Definitely not. Well, you might find them in a book we're going to talk about in a minute, but
yeah,
I had a tactic which was just, let's just go.
Yeah,
the same sort of thing. You'd have one of my sergeants who was sort of might have been a bit sort of, no, let's get them all. We need to. This is unacceptable, and we're going to. I said, no, let's just get in the vans and just go. Yeah, but what if? Well,
yeah,
let's just go, because we are the entertainment. We are the post-nightclub entertainment.
And you'll see where the ringleaders come out of the pubs, they see you, and then they'll start a fight with someone. The police run over and separate them. And they're like, wait. And there was always a couple of lads, obviously I wouldn't do this at all, but after he started a fight with someone, and you could clearly see he's losing on this account, there'd be a slight delay in the reaction to run over, because it was like, don't use us to be your knights in shining armor here when you started it all off. So,
a very legal and ethical delay.
Yes, exactly that.
Oh yeah, but it's looking back those moments of someone grabbing hold of my arm, going, "Yeah, mate, get the fuck off him. He's done fuck all wrong." So that's my poor attempt at. Yeah. And I'd be thinking, there'd be those little golden moments, those phrases, and then they'd always start to remonstrate with it. They'd always start off with, "Yeah, mate, what it was right. So yeah, he was in the pub with me, and then that's
the problem with me. I put a tweet out and answered someone, and he thought it was an outrageous thing for me to say, because they said, well, surely if I think the police officer's wrong, I can argue with him. I said, well, if you do that too much, you'll find yourself arrested. Oh, that's terrible. I get arrested for disagreeing with you. No, you're not understanding this. You're not arguing with the officer. You're arguing with the law, and there's plenty of repercussions that you could. There's plenty of systems in place for you to make a complaint afterwards. But on the street is not the time to start arguing with cops. And it's amazing how many people don't believe that anymore. It's because so many police officers, I think, are, because of cameras, because of edited cameras, because one little mistake and they could lose their careers or have their promotions on pause while the investigation takes place, is because they're having to take so much rubbish off people. Shouty to a copper is absolutely fine nowadays. And you know as well as I know, they would have got a little clip around the ear and they wouldn't have done it again. So I think there's a bit of halfway here. But in this society, there isn't a halfway. That's the problem. So I had the confidence, and I've got a big gob. So I could put fear into people without actually touching them, harming them physically or whatever. But scary eyes and a big gob, they knew who was in charge. And that would normally work, really. But again, that takes experience. And to get confidence, you need experience, really.
Yeah. And there's something as well I find is to what extent do you really know your powers? To what extent are you trying to perfect the art, the craft of policing? And I talk about that with some newer bobbies now, and they go, what craft of policing? But it's a craft, and there's something there, I think, about developing your craft
I always knew, as a sergeant on the street, as a PC on the street, if I knew, like the back of my hand, the Public Order Act, drink drive, and what was the other one? And powers of entry. Powers of entry.
Yeah.
Powers of entry, drink drive, public order. I could look anything else up in a book later on.
Absolutely.
But if you knew those like the back of your hand, you could go in with confidence. Yeah. Right, no, this is what we're doing. We're going in. Yeah. And you can't do that. Well, Section 3 of the Criminal Law Act. And how many times have I spun someone around saying, right, person may use such force as reasonable in the circumstances of the prevention of crime. And I'll give them the second verse if they want as well. And as you're shoving them up the road after they've ignored you for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, they suddenly realise, oh, okay, I might be a law student in my first year, but I think he knows a bit more than me.
Stuff. Oh my goodness, we could wax lyrical about the job forever, couldn't we? But let's have a look at some questions. Simone is saying, hello, Harry and Brendan. Hello, Simone. Magda, I'm going to embarrass you a little bit here because I know you're hoping to join Harry's force. Ahmed, Jonathan, let's just see. So here's a good question. So Simone's asking, Harry, when did you decide you wanted to become a firearm officer, and was there any specific reason? There's a good question.
Yeah, I was a Torquay. I must have been after my probation, and Torquay is, I used to call it the Costa del Dole, and there was a lot of Scousers actually, because you were allowed to be unemployed anywhere in the country at that time. So people prefer to be on the dole down here in Ilfracombe and Newquay as opposed to maybe some parts of Liverpool. So it was quite a drive, and all the social problems came along with that. So it was quite a lively little place. And I remember seeing a car going out, plain car with 4 firearms officers, guns strapped, MP5s across their fronts. And I thought, oh, wow, that's the bee's knees. And I think really looking at even more, guns are great and all that, but a bit of a... But I think it's, that you get that teamwork within the police, that you feel part of that big team, that our gang's bigger than yours. And that camaraderie, the fact that you go to a fatality and other people you share that common purpose. Firearms is even more so than that, because you are so close-knit with training, you share crayons and stuff, and pop that one in for you, but it's training, and it's going to a job. When you actually do a job and it comes off well, and I remember that particular job, there was a raid on a post office, and it was all over the papers, and guns pointing at them, they were on the floor, and I just thought, I want to be a part of that. Fast cars and guns, yeah, that's quite attractive, that. And that's why I applied for it. And I go into depth about this, a little bit more depth, but basically it was a disastrous application process, because the guy who was in charge, the inspector in charge of it, absolutely despised me. He thought I was an incompetent fool. So this wasn't really a good start. And I remember because we found on a night shift, the police, the Panda car had a PA system on it, and so I was doing OB1, you fight well. Your father was taught you well, impressions through the PA. And what I thought was, and there's the inspector around the corner. And he leant into the car, he said, I wonder, can we have a bit more professionalism, please, officers? And I'm like, oh, no, I'm just applying for this. And it was only because, through sheer luck, that I managed to get onto the course where I really had to shine then. Otherwise, I was going to get dropped. And it sort of went all right, went really well. And I've never looked back since. So that's about 23 years ago, really.
Wow. Gosh, that's a lot of time spent as a firearms officer, a big chunk of your career.
It is, and because in Devon and Cornwall, fortunately, we have less gun crime, but we do have, it's an attractive prospect for OCG still. We have a lot of knives, taxings, drugs, a lot of mental health. We have a lot of cases where here we've got more firearms available than most other places per square mile. I think we're pretty much almost top of the country. So if someone's angry with someone else, it's very easy to get hold of a shotgun, shove it in the boot of their car, and then drive to the guy who's having an affair with his missus, and we get the call halfway from the missus saying, he's gonna kill him, So, and And so that's, or we have very isolated places, and that was where I had a guy literally taking a machete into all the shop windows and windscreens down the high street of Copplestone. And so I look in the sat nav, it's an hour away. Where's my next armed response? Oh, they're an hour away. Okay, can I have a helicopter, please? 5 minutes later, helicopter into the field. I go into the helicopter. Not only then, I've now got a panda car, flying panda car, to search the area for this guy, and we actually located him and nicked him. And again, mental health, severely paranoid schizophrenic, and could have been very nasty. But ways and means, isn't it? And yeah, I felt like James Bond for a few minutes. It was quite nice, but it worked.
Well, I've got to say, you know, when you mentioned that, and I don't think I could ever have been a firearms officer. I mean, I worked in Bermuda Police for 3 years, and everyone had to be firearms trained there. And the Smith and Wesson revolver.
Yeah, very popular. Yeah, good guns though, weren't they? I understand.
Yeah, 1989. So it was never really my thing, but as an inspector, I always remember the firearms incidents that involved mental health, and thinking, and having sort of debriefs with the superintendents later, and the conversations were always around that if we'd taken a different tack, this could have involved a shooting. You know.
Oh, how many times? How many times we heard that? And and that's the process. And I'm a firearms tactics advisor as well. So, and I always say that the course is now 13 weeks for your very basic course. And then you're doing 4 days refresher every 6 weeks. And they are hard. They are full on building searches, vehicle interceptions, open ground searching. It's muddy, it's dirty, it's hard work, it's fitness tests. It's, you know, it's really involved. And to be honest, I was starting to think, do you know what? This is just, it's constant pressure. Your whole career, you think, oh, great, I've passed the firearms course, I'm all right now. Way! And then it only just starts. So, but the reward of the bit where you see an ARV driving by with 2 cops in it, not doing very much, you think, oh, you know, what are they doing? But behind it, because we're dual rolled, I used to specialize in this serious injury, fatal road traffic collisions as well. So as what they called then was an SIO, Senior Investigating Officer fatal. So I went to 11 fatals in 8 weeks on one occasion. So I rustled up, I've been to 150 to 200 fatalities. So that was real opposite sides of the scale. And that's part of it, isn't it? Variety, incredible. Whereas other forces that had a lot more gun crime just couldn't do that. They had to specialize in just ARV only.
It's you know, those jobs involving firearms. Actually, I just remembered now. There's a woman came up to me in the street as I was shopping on my own in Altrincham, and she came up to me and just thanked me for saving her son's life a couple of years before, and I couldn't remember what it was. And then when she reminded me, I was the inspector who turned up when the firearms team were putting a cordon around the house because her son had got hold of his father's shotgun, and it was that mental health problem.
Yeah.
I took the bold step of thinking, do you know, this could go one of 2 ways, and so I took it one way, and we diffused it without the need for the firearms team. But
it's that's what I was saying earlier. It's 13 weeks is the basic course. 12 is 1 week how to shoot someone, 12 weeks how to avoid it.
The kudos to firearms officers, because you know that moment when you've actually got to pull the trigger as well. I mean, I can't imagine anything actually preparing you.
Do you know, it's to me, I've come very close twice where I thought this is it, and slack's taken up on the trigger and you're just waiting for them. The rules are very simple. The rules are simple is if that person has the opportunity, you know, to shoot somebody else or yourself, then you're shooting. And because the training is, they say it's a cliche, but the training takes over, is I know that any of those firearms officers out there, they're not going to be going, oh, am I going to shoot? Or no. The training is so repetitive. You are suddenly, it's almost like you're in a training exercise because you treat every training exercise as if it was the real thing. And therefore, if that gun that was pointing down and you're saying, keep the gun down, put the gun down, drop it, drop it, drop it. If they go like this, when it's there, you're shooting. And there was no way on this earth that any of our firearms officers is going to give somebody else the benefit of the doubt. Well, let's hope it's a fake. all this business on these films in America where they're going, no, you put the gun down, no, you put that. That just really wouldn't happen, I assure you.
No. Even with the limited training I had, it was, you know, I remember that shoot, don't shoot video thing that we had to do, the 180 sort of screen that wrapped around us. And this was back in the...
Yeah. There's pressure on there as well, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, God, it was the amount of times that I learned to do that actually I should have just pulled the trigger.
It is constant. And then, of course, move on, and I did VIP driving and J-turns and handbrakes. That's all relatively recently with all that side of things, anti-ambush. And of course, when you do a VIP training, you do go on scenarios, you don't know what's coming up. And the instructors are blooming amazing, you know, and it might be just someone mental health that they're enacting. How do you deal with that? What level are you? Are they a threat to your VIP? Or are they just about to try to assassinate them? You know, and then they'll, on one of them where you think, actually, it's looking a bit rural here, and then Armageddon occurs, and they just want to see in the shock and awe. What do you do? Do you freeze? Do you, okay, front vehicles out. What do you do? VIP's in front. Okay, you've got to get him into the back vehicle, full on reverse, as hard as you can. And, or if the principal vehicle goes ahead, do you follow? You've got to follow, you know? So it's really high intense, exciting stuff. But you can look an idiot if you get it wrong. And that's the pressure, really.
God, I you know, kudos to you for doing that role for all those years, because I could not. I decided after my basic training abroad that I was going to come back to the United Kingdom and never declare that I have any firearms experience whatsoever. I just did not want to get drawn into it.
Well, the other thing I'd say, people say, oh, you know, brave things. No, I'm hiding behind a big gun. I'm the safest of everyone, I tell you.
Let's see what other questions we've got. So, oh, there's loads of stuff there. I'm sorry we can't speak to all of these questions here. So,
should we do some short answers? Some short answers. And
short ones. So there's one here that's really, really long. I should just...
that's good.
Actually, Ahmed Vorajee just saying... your views on the current recruitment process, which you might not know anything about, I don't know, but
I do.
Colleagues from a black and minority ethnic background, how they were accepted. So that's an interesting question.
How they accepted.
Yeah.
Which force is he going in? Not that it should make a difference, but what force is he going? Is he applying for, or is he thinking of? See if you come up, Ahmed, because I know you've come up a couple of times. I can promise you.
I think it's West Yorkshire Police he's applying for.
Right. Oh, don't go there. No, I'm only joking. That's Dee Collins' ex-force, I think. She was amazing. Really good. Right, Ahmed, I want to put your mind at rest. Obviously, because I'm not black myself, and so I can't obviously speak for people within the force. However, I can honestly say, and I thought when I joined the police, do they beat people up in the cells? I'm not sure. Do they? Because I don't want really to be a part of that. And do they? No, they don't. They don't do that. And all this death in custody is, we deal with the most vulnerable and sometimes violent people in the country. We deal with millions and millions of them, and two of them unfortunately die. And in my view, sometimes that's just unavoidable. But so that we're not beating everyone up and people are dying because of it. So don't believe the rhetoric on that. As far as actually being, I can promise you that my colleagues, and I work with work in the Met with VIP quite often, and I know colleagues that are very good friends of mine all over the country. They would not put up with anyone being homophobic or racist. I'll tell you now, they wouldn't. They wouldn't do it. I don't know what you think, Brendan, with yours, is whether there is some ignorance that occurs sometimes that needs to be sorted out. And if you get someone who, if one of my colleagues thought, I don't like that, they would come to me and say, I don't know if you've noticed, but this guy, John's a little bit, did you hear what he said? I'm not happy with that. I promise you that is the case. So really just, you can relax a bit, I would say. And I hope when you come back to me in 10 years' time, when you're Chief Inspector, that you'll have agreed with me and said, yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, I think it's been a changing journey. So I'm honest, I've been in two forces when I went to GMP in 1992. And I've got to say, I thought there was over racism, over sexism, over homophobia. And it's been a journey, you know, and it's been a challenging journey, but it's needed good people to stand up for the right thing and continue to stand up for the right thing. And I think we've got the code of ethics, which has kind of said, no, look, here are the rules. It's a lot clearer for everyone. And I think we've got lots of really, really good people now. And, you know, I say GMP was that in 92.
Yeah.
I left that force 6.5 years ago, very, very proud to have been part of the journey there. And knowing that they've still got a journey to go on. So it's not perfect by any means, but the best it can be.
And I think the recruitment process now is you've got to really be an in the closet racist to get through that now, I think, because you can't act all the time. You know, you will show your true self and it will surface and people won't put up with it.
Yeah. And once you're in as well, once you've joined, if there's any element of racism, sexism, homophobia within you, you will get found out and they will call you out and you will be removed from the force. You will. There'll be, and rightly so, you know, rightly so. I don't want to work. See, I don't want to work. I'm not a police officer anymore. But I would not have wanted to work, and nor did I tolerate back in the day those elements of racism. And actually, something I've just remembered now, I remember one of my, a couple of my PCs called out someone who was saying some things that were extremely sexist. Yeah. And it was a female officer saying these sexist things. And they called her out on it. And the sergeant reported back to me, said, this has happened. But I tell you what has happened here. What we've discovered is that actually she thought this was the way that she was going to get accepted. By,
I know. That can be quite common. Yeah.
Joining in. And
I had a very similar conversation with a female officer saying, "You don't." She was so outrageous. So you don't have to do that. You know. She felt. I just felt, and she was such a lovely individual. She was just bringing out an ugly side because it was just so outrageous. She wanted to shock, to say, "Accept me, accept me." And I love the fact that you can be a female officer and be female, and not have to be one of the lads. And there's on VIP ARV as a female officer, Sam Pullen, who I've known for years and years. She's got 4 children, and she's doing 30-hour weeks, and she's mixing it with the Queen. She's doing armed response jobs in ARVs, and she's able to be herself and not put on an act just to fit in. It's great. And I point her out because I've known her for so long. But you can fall into that trap, I think. Some people can.
Yeah, and I think it's important.
No need for it. And it comes back to what I said before. It's be yourself. Yeah. Be yourself and do the
values. You know, if these are your values, then you're accepted into the force for those values because they link in with the values of the force and of the service and the tradition of the service. And change. Be your own person and stand up for the right thing. Let's see. So Brian's just saying, I quite like this. You are a number. After I was retired, I was in HQ canteen and saw my number on the shoulder of a new recruit. That was it. That was when it hit home.
Oh, ouch. Ouch. You should be able to sell your numbers. You should be given a certain category of like premiership or, you know, how much.
Well, I'll tell you, there's one of my, this chap who I coached for his final interview. When I say coached, you know, I don't give people the answers. I sort of show them the way. They've got to do the hard work. They've got to do the preparation. And I won't say what force it is because it could embarrass him because it could identify him. But in the interview, because in his first question, I said, well, why do you want to join the police? And he came out with a load of cliched nonsense, you know, helping the community, put something back. No 2 days are the same. And I said, stop, come on, what's your real inspiration? He said, well, I love my father, but actually my uncle's the person who's really inspired me because he was a police officer in this force. And he talked about his uncle, who'd now retired. And he, you know, when he talked to me about it, I just thought, just say that. There you go, just say that. And so he did. He went to the interview and said that. And this is where I think there's some nice humanity in the police service. Yeah. The interviewer said, well, I can't tell you whether you've passed or not. You'll get the official notification in a day or two. But let's see what we can do to get your uncle's collar number on your shoulder.
Lovely.
Thought, what a lovely touch. You know, and that's what I like about the police service. Is that lovely touch they can add because they can. Because they can.
Exactly. Thank you. If there's two questions I saw come up. Somebody's just had to leave, and thank you because they've got. I didn't find your question, but one said, "What's the effect of the family?" And one said, "Special Constable, why did you do it? Did you find it?" I didn't catch the name, so apologies. But if I can say Special Constable, yeah, really good. I used it as an investment to find out what it was like. Would it suit me? Let's find out, do they beat people up in the cells or not? Let's see if it's for me. It's free of charge, but you get good expenses. You get all your training done so that when you do join the police, you know it already pretty much as far as the law is concerned. So it's a really good head start. You can fit it in when you want to. You can do just, carnivals and stuff, or you go alongside response officers and even other things as that. Really, really good stuff. I would recommend it. And then, of course, you get your foot in the door for any interview. So if you're thinking, I'd like to do it, but if I apply now, I'm just going to, or if you do get knocked back like I did, go with the specials. And the other one, Brendan, just for you as well, because you've got a lot of experience as well, is the effect it has on you and your family. I mean, all these road deaths and things like that. Again, different ways to handle it, I found. And yes, I've dealt with cop deaths with small babies, children the same age as my son at the time. And I am a big soppy git. I deal with a hell of a lot of death. But I get the old tear come down, because the minute I treat someone as a statistic is a sad day for all. And so if I was investigating a road death, I would always look at the body, just so that I was at the scene. It gave me some credibility with the family, and I knew the person I was dealing with. And I would very much, within the police, you will talk about it. And I'll say, blimey, that was a horrible one last night, wouldn't it? And they'll go, oh yeah, so, and the conversation flows. And with a small knit section like I had on armed response, it was, even if we went to a hanging or something, it's all a bit quiet, and I say, hey, Simon, that job yesterday, did you actually see the body on that one, or did you just search for it? Oh, no, we helped cut it down and all this sort of thing. And then the conversation goes, and somebody else, and that is the diffusing, and that is the bit. And then you just say, right, next Friday, we're off. Fancy going for a beer down Wetherspoons or something, just to, and that's how you do it. And that's how, I don't tend to talk about it much at home. I don't really want to, I don't need to, but that's my way. And Brendan, how did you find, basically?
Well, 6.5 years out, I still have moments where I'll remember something. And I've got to say, I won't go into the case because GMP civil litigation are dealing with it, but they had a conversation with a couple of weeks ago about an incident that occurred 7 or 8 years ago. And very traumatic at the time because it involved someone's death before their time. And I've got to say, for a couple of days, I was in quite a dark place, and the thing that did it for me, well, I didn't talk about it with the family because that was my coping strategy. I never talked about it with the family because I didn't want them to worry, especially my wife, when I went to work. But again, perhaps that wasn't the best thing to do because I bottled stuff up. And I don't think there's an answer. I've not got an answer. I've just got what I did. And so I'd do walks. I'd take the dog for a walk. I'd watch the sky. I'd listen to birds. I'd look at the top of trees. And, I'd take the kids to school and just look at everyone and just think, life is okay. And
I know.
Tough.
Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, it's tough, but finding that coping strategy. But the thing I think that's good about police service now is that they will help you find that coping strategy. Whereas when I first joined, if you'd asked at GMP 1992, if I'd asked someone, so how are you feeling about that incident, you tended to go, fuck off. But then they might have also been thinking, actually, I want to cry.
Yeah.
So, but I think things have changed a lot now. And
my fear, though, Brendan, is I see Rachel just coming up there saying she finds it hard to cope because she lives on her own. Social distancing is really not helping as well. And the problem I have is when sections were bigger, you had bigger sections and a bigger audience amongst yourselves to talk about. And now what you can have is, say you're working in Honiton or something, in Devon, you can be going to work on your own. You could go to a cop death or a fatal road traffic collision, or just a a bit of an old sudden death that, you know, that's a bit of a smelly one, so to speak, shall we say. And then you come back, and in the meantime, the other guy's already gone home because you were a bit late. You've self-briefed yourself, and you're going home. And you're not only that, you're going home to your family where you're going through a divorce, or you've got trouble with your kids that are misbehaving in school, and all these pressures can build up. And so it's really, really important that you find, I mean, I've got a buddy that we've got a red button on each other, and that's Ollie Taylor. And he's the Devon and Cornwall police biker. He comes up on Twitter, and he's my soulmate. And he's much better at it than me, but he'll give me a call and say, Harry, that was a rough one you went to today, wasn't it? You know, and you just need someone, one person that you can just, you know, and chill out, have a beer, have a talk. And it's just so important, because somebody say it's just drip feeding. So you're filling your water jug, and all these fatalities, all these deaths, and then one day it flows over, and that's the day that I've so far escaped, luckily. Mine's probably just under the lip, but the more you talk about it, will sort of lower that level, I think, really.
Yeah, and I think there's I'm very refreshed to see the services more welcoming of the fact that it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to ask questions of each other, like, so, but how you really... Was
that somebody said if you hear the phrase "man up," it usually means "man down."
Yeah.
Which is...
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. Wise. I said we'd be about an hour, didn't I? But I've got to ask, you know, over the past few months, or maybe a year or two, it appears as though you've been busy doing something else other than being an ARV sergeant.
I don't know what do you mean? Now, having watched Jonathan Ross, I know they do this a lot.
Here's what I prepared earlier.
It's got writing. It's not all colouring in. All right, I'll have you know.
Where are the crayons? I mean, where did that crayon come from?
I hate that the red ones are nice. People keep saying, is it just got, you know, I've just gone to McDonald's and nicked their colouring in things and stuff. And there's these sketch ones that you can get off the internet of police cars and things. It would be good if it was just blank pages. But I tell you what, my dad was born in 1909. Okay, literally a million years ago. He died when I was 18 at the age of 79, and he was a Spitfire pilot. He was a spy and whatever, and he was married to a Hollywood actress. I'll throw that in. And Todd, looked some black and white, beautiful photographs of her. So anyway, my mum was his third wife, and that lasted 26 years until he died. Cheaper than divorce, I think. And but he wrote a book, and it was pretty much his autobiography, and it was invaluable just to have a taste and listen to him talk, to get an idea of what he did and his feelings at the time. So my wife had a back injury, and we weren't going to go anywhere on holiday, so I just rattled stuff out just for my kids. That's it. And then my kids are 21, and they won't read it. I'm sure they won't read it for years, but one day they might. One day their kids might, and that's the only reason I did it. And then somebody said, well, "You need to print this. This is ridiculous." And then I gave it to an adult who is hyper. My mum, who speaks like the Queen, and is 85, and she had a friend who was very much into English degrees in English literature, you know, publishing books, and I was scared to death. And my mum contacted me and said, "Harry, you can't believe they're so excited. They love it." So now I know it's not a car crash. And it's just a load of stuff that starts a little bit about my childhood, because my childhood I wasn't one of those that was, I was privileged without the money. We had the land, we had no mortgage, but we had absolutely no cash. I had a dad as a pensioner, and my mum was a housewife of 4 kids. You see what I mean? So we were really fortunate. We lived on the top of the cliff, but I did used to make pipe bombs out of fertilizer and scaffolding tubes. So that's really where the book starts. I'd have been nicked under the Terrorism Act today.
If your life had gone a different direction.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm looking forward to this as a read, because it's stories like this that will have lessons for others within them, and I know.
Yeah, it's and it talks about, it talks about how I went through it, and it really emphasises the fact that you know, you get to a police cadet and they look at me and they go, what I thought when I saw an armed ARV sergeant, I think, oh, blimey, they must have just swanned it up there. They were, I'll never be like them. And I'm here to say, yeah, you can. And it's, if you don't give up the first time, you give it another go, that puts you ahead of everyone else who gave up the first time. You're already ahead of them. You already know the next steps. And that second interview is so much more familiar. You'll rump it, you know? And that's the way to do it, is never sit in the comfortable seat. Don't go for an easy life, and then you'll have a lot of fun.
Oh, I like that. Do you know, I think, Harry, we should end on that one. I like that.
Really? It's been fun. It's been fun.
Yeah, I like that. So, you know, keep hold of your vision. Make it a clear one, and just don't let anything hold you back. Just keep going for it. Stuff. Well, listen, I'm looking at the time now. I did say we'd be about an hour. We could probably talk for another hour. I mean, it's just fantastic.
We'll do another one someday. But thank you so much, Brendan, for asking me.
Honestly, thank you so much. I know you will have inspired many, and I'm sorry to all the people who are asking questions.
I know. We just,
didn't get round to them all, but hopefully, you know,
I promise them if they ask me on my Twitter account, just Harry Tangye, just search Harry Tangye. And then just DM me if a question, and then I'll do my best to answer them.
Brilliant stuff. Now, I'll put this out on YouTube as well, so you can always ask in the comments, or if you are not part of, here's my shameless plug, if you're not part of the Bluelight Police Recruitment Facebook support group, and there's a load of serving officers in there now as well. There's over 10,000 in that group, so if you just go to Facebook groups and search for that and ask to join, we'll let you in. And if you've got any questions, I can pass them on to Harry as well. So if there's any post questions, or if you want to ask, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you want to ask a question in the comments, I can always pass it on to Harry, and he can get back with it. Well, listen,
I confess, I'm like those news readers, when actually I just have shorts on as well.
Well, I've got...
What about you? Yay!
Brilliant stuff. Well, where can we go from there? Well, I think we can only finish.
Nice one.
You're a gentleman. Thank you very much for today. I shall look forward to reading your book, and enjoy your retirement. And it'd be great to keep in touch and hear from you as to what adventures are ahead. I know there'll be many.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy. Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Harry. Bye-bye.